Wolf back. What's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. Here with your second to last Week 14 injury recap, Week 15 waiver wire show. The second last of these, as I was just saying, the season is coming down here, Wolfpack. And if you are listening live, that means there's a good chance you're in at least some of your semifinals coming up here. We're going to look ahead, recap all the injuries you need. Anybody useful out there on the waiver wire, we will be sure to highlight in case you're dealing with any of these injuries and you need any immediate replacements. I'm so thrilled that we still have some of you guys here tuned in. That means, again, you guys are competing in those leagues. If you're catching the replay as well, thank you so much for tuning in. Regardless of where you're at, if you don't mind giving this a thumbs up button, greatly helps us get out to more people and see the show. And as you can see in the ticker below, if we've helped you at all this season and you're willing to consider a testimonial, visit rotostreetjournal.com/support2020 and send that on in. There is a tip jar too at the bottom. Not expected, but always so appreciated. Let's now get right into the content. The biggest injury of the week has to be Deebo Samuel. Coach of 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, saying Deebo Samuel will be out for, quote, a while. Well, there's not that much longer to be out. We only have 2 weeks left in the regular fantasy season, 3 weeks left in the season. You got to imagine this guy's done for at least your fantasy matchups, probably the year, given they don't have a whole ton to play for, these 49ers. He came up lame on his first touch, just ruining your fantasy day if you started Deebo Samuel. Goes right to the back after a 9-yard carry. Just painful. The guy's been brittle all year. Missing time, like flashes his upside because he is so deadly after the catch, so dangerous the way they manufacture touches for him, but ultimately a brutal absence from him. We saw what happened when he was gone. That was Brandon Ayuk going completely berserk, seeing 16 targets, nearly 40% target share for Brandon Ayuk. 10 of them hauled in for over 119 yards in the score. The guy is just an absolute beast, Brandon Ayuk. He can do everything Deebo can do after the catch, but then also get deep, run a full route tree, all the branches. I mean, this guy is the future at San Fran. There's no doubt about it. He's also been more targeted in their games together so far. And now with Deebo removed, we're looking at yet another 15-plus targets coming against Dallas this coming week, giving up the most points to wide receivers other than the Seahawks right now. It's going to be a smash spot for Brandon Ayuk. If you own him, congratulations. You have a potential league winner heading into Week 15. He already was a huge factor in your Week 14 wins here as long as you were starting him. Now you get this guy to go berserk against the Cowboys in Week 15. Hopefully a fast recovery for Deebo. Long-term outlook. Obviously, it's getting sketchier and sketchier the more and more dinged up he gets throughout his career. I much would rather own Brandon Ayuk if I'm in dynasty leagues or anything of that nature at this point. It's pretty clear. The more complete talent, the guy that can stay healthier. But speedy recovery to Deebo Samuel. A couple other big injuries, though. We had Mike Gesicki, the Dolphins, just completely smashed up on their side of the ball offensively. Mike Gesicki was helped to the locker room with looked like a shoulder injury. He did wave to the crowd and seemed to be in okay spirits, even though it looked pretty brutal when it happened. I don't know that he'll play this week, but it didn't seem like something that's going to completely shut him down the rest of the year. Of course, again, we only have 2 weeks left of the fantasy season. Even any missed time is brutal to consider. So and this coming after a monster game for Mike Gesicki. 5 catches, 65 yards, 2 scores. Only Travis Kelce outscoring him at the tight end position for Week 14. Ultimately, they're heading into a tough matchup against New England for tight ends, at least. They've been one of the most limiting teams to the position, 3rd fewest points. So it wasn't like it was a great spot for Gaseki in your playoffs. It's not like Adam Shaheen's now going to suddenly step in and take over. But not only this, Devante Parker leaves early, does not return, and then Jakeem Grant has been deemed week to week. So this pass-catching core is completely decimated for Tua, who's coming off the 3rd highest quarterback week of Week 14, behind only Rodgers so far. So, I mean, a monster effort for Tua. I just don't think you could ever trust him against New England, who will have a great game plan to scheme against the rookie with none of his weapons there. And ultimately, it does make Lynn Bowden a very intriguing pickup, man the slot all day, ultimately led the team in snaps at the receiver position, a lot of that being probably injury-related, yes, but 59 snaps were by far the highest. Mac Hollins had the next closest with 40 snaps. He got 7 catches, 9 targets, 82 yards, all team highs. So ultimately, I like Lynn Bowden moving forward, only 1% owned. We'll dig into him a little bit later, but so dinged up there for your Dolphins. Christian McCaffrey, quote unquote, plans to play again in 2020. Yay, he plans. Woo. He just wants to tickle your nuts a little bit more just to get you fucking nice and horned up, only to abandon you on his own workout, suffering a thigh injury. God damn, what a loser fantasy-wise this year. Just an absolute bust completely. He had his 3 monster games, so maybe he helped you win those. But if you own McCaffrey and you don't own Mike Davis, you're probably not paying attention to this broadcast anyways. Now, if you get him, he's going to be facing Green Bay, who give up the second most points to running backs. He'll decimate them. You're going to get 35 points, and if you somehow survive, maybe you had a bye week with McCaffrey, yeah, God, you probably had Mike Davis at that point. But when you get McCaffrey back, he'd be putting up 35 plus if he gets the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, a must play on DraftKings on that 2-game Saturday slate we got coming up. Looking ahead, Wolfpack. So check him out. Make sure, of course, you're checking in on him all week. Of course, Mike Davis, if McCaffrey does not play, would be a monster start yet again. 2 touchdowns this week, back to the vintage Mike Davis of early season. But McCaffrey expected to probably go this week. So the one kind of takeaway there is they're not just completely shutting him down for the year, at least as of yet, which I know is a big concern for McCaffrey owners who had the bye. So you can maybe get this final stretch run squeezed out with McCaffrey. Good luck if you get him, and good luck if you're facing him, because he could go berserk again against Green Bay. Matthew Stafford's status is in doubt for Week 15 versus Tennessee with nothing on the line. I can't imagine he goes out there and guts it out. Now, it's such a damn shame because that is a cakewalk matchup against Tennessee. All about that one. Ultimately, I'm just not it's like who can you trust on that offense without him? Chase Daniel coming in. Ultimately, there's nothing you really want. Maybe Swift as like the featured back, but on a Chase Daniel-led team, like how great's that going to be? Tennessee is that soft. And on DraftKings, I mean, Chase Daniel will probably be like 4,800. So there could be a crazy stack potential there with him and maybe Marvin Jones, Cook. I'm not expecting much, but the Tennessee defense is completely downy soft. So you could get some just garbage time stats. They're going to put their points up against Detroit. Derrick Henry is going to steamroll this team, giving up the most points to running backs. So the Lions will have to be playing catch-up mode. Daniel's going to sling. We'll see what he does, who he chucks to, but could end up being a viable DraftKings punter. Of course, not considering him in seasonal leagues if you're in your quarterfinals, even in 2 QP leagues. Noah Fant did leave Week 14, did not see a single target before leaving. Just trusted him. He gave you a big flip in the bird right as he head out. Fucking sucks. And he didn't even, not that we're sitting here like, I hope he tests for something serious. Like, of course not. We're happy that he tested negative for COVID. But you just wonder, like, what was it? They said maybe food poisoning or something of that nature before the game. What the fuck's what are you eating as a professional athlete when this is your job? Like, that you get food poisoning before a game. Who knows? Either way, he does have Buffalo lined up on Saturday, who are giving up the 3rd most points to tight end. So if he plays, it's going to be tough to bench him despite this sickening effort. If you somehow survived it, he'll probably be a top 10 tight end given how bad the position is. So Noah Fant gave you a bird. Hopefully didn't ruin you in your leagues because tight end's just that bad anyways. But if he plays in Week 15 and it looks like he's trending towards it, given he didn't test positive for COVID, probably in your lineups. Also rounding out the injuries here, Mike Williams left Week 14, did not return. And in his absence, Tyron Johnson, whoever the fuck that guy is, count me on somebody who's never heard as Tyron Johnson before this day, but he had 6 catches. He became the de facto number 2 receiver behind only Keenan Allen. Played 54 snaps behind Keenan Allen and Jalen Guyton, but Guyton had 1 catch for 8 yards, whereas Tyron had 6 catches, 7 targets, 55 yards, and a score. I mean, if we get Mike Williams out on Thursday Night Football here, a short week for the guy to recover, Tyron Johnson could be a desperation plug in. Again, when I say desperation, I mean like reeking desperation. If you're somehow in your semis and you're starting Tyron Johnson, I don't even know what's happened to fantasy, but still, it's worth considering because the Raiders are horrible, and this guy was the clear number 2 once Mike Williams left. Now, in a couple scares, we had Ronald Jones, who, quote unquote, may have fractured his pinky. I don't know what that means. He's not really doing much catching anyway, so I'm not overly concerned about this one as long as he can gut it out, put on a little splint and play through it. He played through it on Sunday, had, a monster effort in terms of volume, was 19 of the 25 touches of that backfield with a healthy scratch for Leonard Fournette. You hope that workhorse role can continue. It's a very soft slate down here for Ronald Jones. So as long as Fournette remains inactive, as long as this guy can remain on the field, you got to keep treating him as a low-end RB1. And last but not least, in terms of the scares, we had Raheem Mostert get evaluated for a concussion. He returns. But given the fact that he's talking about how his ankle's not fully healthy, it won't be the rest of this year. Another head injury. I mean, he's been in and out all year. It definitely means you got to get ahead on the waiver wire and add their backup, Jeff Wilson, who we're going to dig into in a little bit. But those are the big injuries of the week, Wolfpack. Let me know if I missed any. I believe that was all of them. So let us now turn our attention to our waivers. And as always with Monday Night Football, I like to give you any preemptive strikes, and there's really none of note. And probably there's someone savvy enough in your league to already own the Browns. They're 50% owned. But if not, they get the Giants next week, who we just saw shit their complete pants. Daniel Jones turned it over, 18 times? Disgusting. So you get him, and then they get the Jets back-to-back dates with the New York shit-fest teams. That's great for Cleveland. With maybe Denzel Ward returns for those matchups. Who knows? They're going to be playing because they are 9-3. They're going to try to – tonight's game might determine, how many starters are in there in Week 16. But if you are already into your quarterfinals or you have a bye week, this is a team that's out there, again, in half the leagues and has 2 cakewalk matchups. Other than that, maybe Gus Edwards is 33% owned if something ever happens to Ingram or Dobbins. He could be a sneaky stash down the stretch. They have a nice stretch run schedule, the Ravens do, for running backs. The Jags coming up. So if you got to start out of Gus Edwards, it's worth putting him on your bench right now if you have trash to cut. But let's get into the actual action here, the actual guys you'd want to pick up that are going to be worth something. And I'm going to start right at the top, the storyline of Week 14, Jalen Hurts, only 17% owned coming into the week. He should be close to 50 to 100% owned by the end of this one. Even if you're just blocking your opponent who may have lost a quarterback or something of that nature, Jalen Hurts was a beast. For fantasy, for real life, rally those Eagles troops, goes 17-30, so passing day. But that's not why you're picking up 167 yards and a score. Did what he had to do to move the ball on a great defense, the Saints defense. But what was more impressive were the 18 carries, the 106 yards against the number 1 ranked running defense in the league. That's going to make him a fantasy monster. He already put up 20, again, with 167 and a TD passing. That's what happens. Taysom Hill's been the quarterback 3 since taking over as the starter because the leg points at quarterback are so invaluable, and we just saw Hurts put up 100. I mean, that was like Lamar Jackson-esque with that type of rushing total as of last year. It's a cheat code when you can get a quarterback that does that type of damage, and now he gets Arizona next week, bottom 10 against quarterbacks. Dallas the next week, even worse. He's going to run wild these last 2 weeks. I certainly don't want to face him, whether I'm starting him or not. So I will be going all in to get Jalen Hurts, throwing all my waiver money to block my opponent, to start him if I need a quarterback. If you lose Taysom Hill this week because Breeze is probably going to be back, Jalen Hurts, go right to your next running option at quarterback. I thought he looked very, very solid. Clearly the team rallied around him. In terms of what he means for the rest of the team, too, I know this isn't necessarily part of the waiver wire show, but Miles Sanders, resurrected from the dead. I'm glad we recommended him a ton on our sit-start show, 11 a.m. on Sundays. 14 carries, 115, and not one but 2 scores, in addition to 21 yards receiving on 4 catches. An absolute monster. The second highest scoring running back behind only Derrick Henry last week. That read option really got him going. And moreover, this is kind of the offense plan they crafted was focal point Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts just running all over the place. He played 56 snaps, Miles Sanders, is compared to only 15 for Boston Scott and 2 to Corey Clement. That was a huge difference compared to the previous 3 weeks where Boston Scott was getting closer and closer to a 50% snap share. So Miles Sanders right back in your top 7 running backs for the rest of season rankings with Jalen Hurts, this read option, this let's feature one guy, finally Doug Peterson, waking his ass up. It was great to see for Miles Sanders. Now everybody else on the offense besides Hurts and Sanders does lose out quite a little bit here. Dallas Goddard was the leading receiver, 4 catches, 43 yards. I mean, he's still starting for you at tight end, given how bad the position is if you own him and you've been using him. But it's certainly not going to be quite the aerial volume you're going to get out of a Carson Wentz, even though, I mean, what the fuck's that aerial volume? Just diarrhea through the air. But Rager, 39-yard reception, was just about all he contributed there, 46 total yards, and then 19-yard rush. So again, creative usage. They put a ton of those like air raid mesh concepts and that stuff in there. So he'll have his days, but you can't trust Rager in your starting lineup at this point. You can't really trust any passing game options outside of Dallas Goddard here. But you can love Miles Sanders. You can love Jalen Hurts for the rushing upside they are going to bring to lineups here down the stretch. Now at quarterback, if you missed out on Hurts, if he's already picked up and you still need somebody, or especially a 2-quarterback desperation streamer, we got 25 points out of both Mitch Trubisky and Drew Locke. Both are 10% owned in leagues, and they both have potential Week 15 shootouts. Trubisky going up against the Vikings, horrible corner, secondary there. I was hoping Brady would light him up more last week, did not, but Mitch Trubisky could go crazy. They do bleed the clock quite well there in Minnesota. So that's the one thing, is you just don't get too many snaps against that team, given Dalvin Cook. But still, Trubisky can sling it. He had a great game. He's had over 20 points in 2 of his last 3 starts. And you can tell the dude's playing for his job. He's playing whether it's tryout film for another team or to prove to the Bears, I deserve one more shot. We shall see. But Trubisky is playing some decent ball, something I never thought I would be saying here in 2020, but it is 2020. So I guess, you know what? You can say any fucking thing at this point. It doesn't quite matter. And Drew Locke also had a big day, going, 280 and 4 touchdowns. Good Lord. Against the Panthers, a decent secondary coming into this week. Trubisky himself had 267 and 3 scores as well, outdueling Deshaun Watson on the other side with no weapons. But Drew Locke also getting it done, gets a Buffalo team giving up the most points to quarterbacks. I was kind of shocked to see that, at least on DraftKings-wise, they are. So he could be a decent punt play against Buffalo. You get some Saturday afternoon action, too, with him. If you're desperate for quarterbacks, it's just more so the weapons with Drew Locke. Hamler's burning deep. We're going to talk about him in the wide receivers. Noah Fant was even there, and he still was feeding tight ends. Melvin Gordon's keeping the run game clicking. Like, that offense for Denver isn't too shabby when Drew Locke can be on. And now trusting him at any point is always risky. He's really had like 2 blowups in the season, and everything else has been 12 or fewer, like pathetic. But you're in a decent blow-up spot if he can keep riding this hot hand there. Those are the quarterbacks I would be paying attention to on the waiver wire. In terms of running backs, you're not going to find much at this point of the season, but Jeff Wilson could actually be usable if you are desperate at the position, if you suffered any type of injuries. He's only 19% owned. He was in on an almost dead even type of the snaps here. Now, maybe that was because Raheem Mostert left for a concussion. He saw 40 snaps as compared to 39 for Jeff Wilson. The week before, it was 1 more snap for Wilson as compared to Mostert. What's clear here is whether, who outsnaps who is Jerick McKinnon didn't touch the field. Tevin Coleman played 2 snaps. It's between these 2 backs. And Jeff Wilson seems to be a little more favored at the goal line, a little more favored in the receiving game as well. I like Jeff Wilson moving forward. He gets Dallas this week. They're going to have no problem moving the ball at ease. I think it makes Jeff Wilson a great bet to yet again find the end zone, maybe catch a couple balls against this team. I think Mostert will have himself a solid day as well. But Wilson, the one that's out there in a ton of leagues, gets Dallas bottom 5 this week. You get Arizona the next week after that. They're bottom 10 as well. Some good matchups here for Jeff Wilson down the stretch. The only running back that's really worth going all in on at this point. And if you need a running back, if you need a starter, at this point, there's no, how much FAAB do I spend on him? Everything. There's not going to be any more pickups. It's do or die time. And there's probably not going to be anyone else that emerges at this point. So put it all on there on Jeff Wilson if you already missed out on Jalen Hurts or you need the running back position more. The only other viable guy to really bring up as a potential starter would be Deandre Washington, only 24% owned right now. Saw 15 touches. They were useless. Didn't do anything with them. But was right. He actually was outsnapped by Patrick the Laird, our Laird and Savior, as the DFS community seems to just love to make him a thing. I don't understand why ever. But he outsnapped DeAndre Washington. It was Washington getting all the rushing work, also 2 receptions as well. And we did just see what Cam Akers did to this New England team. They are a pathetic run D, just pathetic team overall. It's embarrassing as a Pats fan to say and talk about. They're a joke. And so maybe DeAndre Washington, they were in the red zone quite often. They, as we talked about, are dinged up at all these receiver positions. Maybe they force the run a bit more now. And DeAndre Washington, if again, Gaskin probably going to be on the COVID list again. We'll see what happens with Salvin Ahmed, the other guy to maybe look at on the waiver wire, because I imagine he'd be the preferred option. Because again, Washington was useless in this spot, 35 yards on the ground, 17 through the air, decent. But I ultimately maybe Ahmed is also worth a pickup at about 20% owned right now, as well as whoever's going to be facing that Patriots team. It's a soft defense at this point. And the last running back note would be handcuff. Go for those top guys, whether you're blocking an opponent or you need your own insurance policy. It's like Carlos Hyde at 27% owned, locked in RB1 if he is ever starting at any point, because that offense is just so beastly. Literally, a running back has scored a touchdown every single week, whoever the starting running back is, other than one against Dallas nonetheless too. But he's facing the Rams in week 16 if anything happens. Pollard would get Philly in week 16 if anything happens to Zeke. He's 21% owned. Madison would get New Orleans. I wouldn't love that at all. You just saw him get destroyed by Miles Sanders, but this is a good run D. That was more so just confusion about the read option, all that stuff. And maybe the sneaky one I like the most is Boston Scott. Yeah, I just blew Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders is going to be the horse. But if something happens, Boston Scott is going to be facing Dallas, and we've seen how effective this offense can be to opening those lanes for running backs, how much more run-heavy this game plan is going to be with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. So then you mix in a running back versus Dallas. If it's Sanders, he's going to win titles for people. But Boston Scott would probably put up 25 if anything ever does happen to Sanders. So out there in a ton of leagues, and if you have bench trash, which we all have at this point, consider Boston Scott. Just handcuffing season. You got to get your guys to protect them. Moving on to wide receivers now. John Brown, I got to bring up. 41% owned. A lot of people cutting him if they didn't have IR slots, given that 3-week absence. Well, he's now back to practice. He had back-to-back 11-point fantasy days, saw 11 targets and hauled in 8 of them for 99 yards 2 weeks ago. And then right after that, followed up with not quite as crazy of a performance, but still a pretty usable 8 targets, 6 catches, and over 70 yards. So the guy can get it done. And again, he's facing a Denver team that's middle of the road, nothing too crazy. They gave up a couple big days to those Panthers guys, and they can shoot it out too, which is the best part, is if they get engaged in a shootout here with the Bills. We've seen Drew Locke kind of shoot it out too. That could keep John Brown very viable. So a guy that was dropped in a lot of leagues could be a viable punt if you're dealing with wide receiver problems. There are a ton of guys, though, out there at wide receiver, much deeper than running back. Lynn Bowden being my probably second favorite option as a mass available guy, as we talked about. Gaseki out. You got Devante Parker down. You got Jakeem Grant week to week. Lynn Bowden is the man here. He's the one that stepped up. He caught 7 catches on 9 targets, 82 yards. All those led the Dolphins on the receiving categories here. Man the slot. They kind of dialed up some trickery to maybe throw. They motioned him in the backfield a bunch. And with these backfield injuries, don't be surprised to see him take backfield snaps. That was his calling card coming out of Kentucky there. He was a move it all over the place, like jack of all trades, played quarterback. We could see some trickery against the Patriots. Brian Flores is going to dial some of that shit up against his old former coach. I could see Bowden throwing a touchdown, catching a touchdown, like having one of those crazy days. He's only 3,600 on DraftKings too. If all these injuries linger in, you can expect another 9 to 10 targets for Lynn Bowden Jr. So after John Brown, and maybe even before John Brown, depending how these injuries play out, I like Lynn Bowden. Another guy who did just lead his team in targets, didn't do too much with it, but Chad Hansen, Scott Hansen's cousin. No, I actually have no clue who the fuck Chad Hansen is until this last week, but saw 7 targets, hauled all 7 of them in for 56 yards. Pathetically, that led the team, but that was with Cooks out. No clue yet if Cooks is going to play or not with that neck and foot injuries. But if he sits, Chad Hansen's somewhat viable. I mean, if you get that against the Bears, yeah, he gets the Colts in, and that's not a great matchup. We just saw Nelson Aguilar go 100 in a TD on him. They're nothing like too crazy. They drop in that too deep zone quite often. I could see Chad Hansen, finding those soft spots. He seems to be that like crafty little guy that Watson has trust in. Sure, Cutie scored the touchdown, but ultimately it was Chad Hansen that was his engine for Deshaun Watson. And in a mediocre matchup, don't be surprised if Hansen has another decent day here with Deshaun Watson. I would also not be opposed to Russell Gage if Julio misses time. We saw him heave a touchdown. He caught 82 yards on 5 receptions, and this is now a couple games in a row we've seen Russell Gage, very quiet for a little while now, and then back-to-back in half PPR scoring. He scored 13 points and 16 points across these last 2 weeks. And there's talk that Julio might get shut down with the season already over for the Falcons. It's been over since the second the whistle blew on the year. But ultimately, I don't know that Julio will play, and Tampa Bay has slowly become a matchup to target. It was one that was pretty scary to start the year. They've now become bottom 5 against wide receivers. So if Julio misses next week against week 15, you have that Tampa Bay matchup. I think Russell Gage could be a very viable streamer in week 15. And last receiver to toss out was big play Hamler. 86 yards and 2 TDs. I mean, just running wide open. This guy is a terror to cover. We were hyped up on this guy. He's been in and out of the lineups with injuries, but he's showing why, when he's healthy, what he can do. And he's going to draw the weakest of the Buffalo coverage. Yeah, they got Tre'Davious White, Josh Norman, a decent safety and Hyde, but like they're gonna have their hands full when you got Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick dominating the first 2 people. I think Hamler could definitely sneak deep. Only 3,500 on DraftKings as well. I think he could definitely go deep on this team and toss in another score there. So he's worth a potential punt if you're desperate, as is Tyron Johnson should Mike Williams sit, as we talked about, was second behind only Keenan Allen in yards, found the end zone, 6 catches on 7 targets, over 50 yards. Solid day, solid overall day, and it was clear he has a nice rapport with Justin Herbert. And last but not least, everybody's least favorite position, tight ends. Irv Smith Jr. here, 6% owned, when he was the only guy with Kyle Rudolph out, dinged up with a foot injury, and seems very questionable at best to play this week. We saw Irv step right in, 4 touchdowns, 63 yards, and a tutty there. The last game Kyle Rudolph missed, we saw Irv have 2 touchdowns. He's got 3 touchdowns down the 2 games Rudolph has missed. If he misses another one, he's going to be matched up against Chicago, who's given up the 3rd most points to tight ends. I'd have Irv Smith probably top 8 in tight ends at 6% owned. Go get this guy. If you need to block your opponent, if you need a tight end yourself, Irv Smith would definitely be the play of the week at tight end on the waiver wire. But if you miss out on him, we talked about him last week. I love this Cole Kmet kid. Yeah, Jimmy Graham got the touchdown, but Cole Kmet ran so many more routes, was far more targeted, 7 of them. I think that was second on the team behind only Allen Robinson. Hall's in 4 for 41 yards. Like, huge day? No. But a tight end, I mean, that's about as good as you can ask for these days. And if he had that touchdown that Jimmy Graham scored, we're talking about the second or third best day at tight end at the position. He had a touchdown the week before. We've seen that involvement go up and up and up. They're really seeing what this kid has. And on the other side of Irv Smith, Minnesota's nothing special against tight ends, especially if Kendricks is out. He was out this last week. We saw Gronk score. I could see Kmet definitely finding the end zone, especially if Kendricks is out. Wolfpack, that is all I've got for our waiver wire. It is now on to your questions. I tried to hit the show a little earlier tonight to make sure I could get to any. So we will get to the mail bag once I pull that up. Here we go. Wolfpack, if you haven't already, that thumbs up would be so greatly appreciated to get us out to more people, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, shares in any groups or retweets, all that good stuff is so greatly appreciated. And of course, rotostreetjournal.com/support2020. We greatly, greatly appreciate some testimonials for our pitch deck coming up this off season. Would mean the world if you have any kind words to spare, if we've helped you out at all this year or years in the past or both. Please consider checking out that site for ways you can fill in a written, video, or audio testimonial. It would be so, so greatly appreciated, Wolfpack. Now on to your questions. The dude can't stay healthy. I'm guessing, fellow, you're talking about Deebo Samuel and it sucks. What an ass wipe for fantasy purposes. Just brutal, and just sucks for him because as a player, I love watching him. The field is more electric with him on it, and it's too bad that he cannot stay on the field, but it's damn true. He sure can't. Brandon Ayuk's about to be an absolute monster. I pulled out the W last night. That's what I love to hear, Mitch. On to the semis. Let's go. I know your situation was real close. I thought I liked your side better, and I'm pumped to hear it. Fella, Noah can't. LOL. Love it. Fantastic. Yes, he truly can't. Have a 20-point lead going in tonight. Thoughts on Hunt? Can have him get 20. Oh, man. I always bet 20 from Hunt. I have a buddy, though, that's like facing Hunt in all 3 of his leagues, and if Hunt scores 25, he gets knocked out in all 3. And that's the type of scenario that's like, it means nothing to anybody else out there, but if you're set up like that, it's almost like destiny that Kareem Hunt's going to have 20-something. I don't know that he will. I don't think he will, to be honest. But could he? He's had quite a few, even with Chubb in the lineup. I think Baltimore's a better defense than a lot of the ones he did that for. So I don't think he's getting 20. I think you're in good shape, Mike. Fanta's brutal after such a great start. I know. Those first 2 weeks, Mike Keenan, it was like we got ourselves the new tight end one. I think I had him top 5 tight end in my rest of season big board. I was all about it. And long term, I still believe in the athleticism. I believe in the talent. Don't believe in the quarterback all that much. But yeah, the health has become a huge factor. And tapping out with an illness that wasn't even a serious one, I don't know. Not something you like to see. I don't like that fortitude right there. Tunes, what's going on, brother? Do you think CMC actually comes back for what? To get hurt at the end of the season that is over? I mean, everything you're saying is what I'm saying to myself. If I'm the Panthers, why? That huge contract, like why risk anything further after how dinged up he's got? And I know you're asking because you're Mike Davis, so you're like, why the fuck put him out there? Keep riding Davis. I get that too. I'd much rather see Davis getting ridden at this point of the year. But Rule, I'm just going by what he says. I'm certainly not a close connection to Matt Rule. I don't know if he's truthful. He says he plans on playing him if he's active, if he's able to get him. I wouldn't be shocked to see like the ownership step in and be like, no, we're not playing McCaffrey. So I put it at about 50-50 here. I think McCaffrey has a lot of pride. He's going to want to play if he can. But I don't know. We'll see. What's up with AB? Laid an egg, 0.9 points. 9 points. I was going to say, he had more than that. He had like 5 catches for 40 yards. But yeah, nothing like that appreciated. Like 9 points. I mean, better than Deebo Samuel for those of you that had to deal with that shit. But yeah, I mean, he's just not getting the deep routes. The matchups are still nice down the stretch here, but if you have other options, I mean, like Brandon Ayuk, for example, go to those other options all day, every day at this point. No doubt about it. Noah, thanks. No thanks, right? No thanks for Noah. Connor Leahy up 152-119. I love it. Diggs was a monster. And Chubb is a monster too, but he's not putting up the 33 points tonight. No. He's had 33 against the Ravens in his past, but like not tonight. I'm not expecting it at least. Need Hollywood to have less than 28 points where 40-plus yard TDs get a bonus. Well, Cody, I mean, if ever he's going to have a 28-point night, it's in a league that rewards 40-plus yard TDs because he's going to need a 40-yard bomber to get up to that level. He's going to need multiple of them, to be honest. So I think you're in really good shape here, Cody. Maybe not, but I would be pulling. I'd say this is like a 90% win. Guaranteed, no. We've seen crazier things happen. But yeah, I'd feel pretty good if I am in your spot, Cody. We got the Roto Street Journal commenting in. Hello, Roto Street Journal. Who are you? What's going on, CJ? He's pumping that we have the contest up. So let me pull that on in. If you have not hit our Instagram or Facebook yet, you have a chance to win some exclusive, rare gear from the Roto Street Journal. So let me pull it up for you. Here's the matchup. We do this for all our primetime games. You got to pick all 5 right, and you win some gear. Let me know if you can see that okay. I'll zoom in a little bit here for you. So we got Lamar versus Baker plus Higgins. I'm still going Lamar. I think he's going to go berserk against this awful Cleveland secondary. Chubb versus Dobbins and Gus. Oh, man. I mean, Dobbins, if he gets fed, could go crazy, but give me the Chubb side all day. Andrews versus Landry. I think Andrews is in a great spot tonight. The second most points allowed to tight ends. He's been boomer bust all year, but I think this is going to be one of the boomers. You got Hollywood versus Hunt. I like Hollywood. Stack him up with Lamar. And then Cleveland versus Baltimore versus Tucker. The boot. Give me Tucker there all day. Baltimore would be a close second defense. But I'm going Lamar, Chubb, Andrews, Hollywood, Tuck. is how I'm going to do that one. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. Tag some friends for a premium gear upgrade. But that is the contest for tonight, Wolfpack. Go get your comment in there and try to win some gear. Ilias, for week 15, my running back one is Derrick Henry. You finally stopped to say Henry is in the sit-start question. Thank you, Ilias. Yeah, he's getting Detroit. He's going to run for 250 yards. Like, get on to week 16 already, Ilias. But no, we don't want to jinx it. I'll knock on the wood for you. You need a running back too. Your options are Montgomery, Kamara, Aaron Jones. Why don't you just rub it all our faces here? Good Lord, Ilias. You're going to go Aaron Jones. Getting that matchup against Carolina, the fourth or fifth most to running backs. I know he had a dud. And then it's like, is Breeze playing? Because if Breeze is playing, it's Kamara over even Aaron Jones. Now, Montgomery is on that hot streak, but now he gets Minnesota, which is like a middle of the road matchup compared to like, here's your pure cake. So of these guys, I love riding that hot hand, but Montgomery is the bench for me. Now, if Breeze does not play, I might consider Montgomery over Kamara. I probably would, to be honest. But we'll have to see what Breeze's status is, Ilias. Would you play Akers over CEH? Yes. Steven Drake's, I am so done with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, he had like 11 points or whatever this week. I'm done with him. And Akers is just a monster. Would he play over 50 snaps where the other two got single digits, 6 and 7 each? All the carries? All about CEH. I mean, Cam Akers. He is rolling. And he gets the Jets. Oh, my God. He gets the Jets. I forgot. And Seattle the next week. Akers is going to win leagues. Impatient owners that cut him like myself, we fucked ourselves. Everybody else out there that scooped him, congrats. He's going to really go crazy down the stretch. We got my man Mike Clay. What's up? No, we aren't at rankings yet. Yep, tomorrow at 5:30. I'll give you my gut feelings, though. Herbert at Las Vegas or Brady at Atlanta? Let's go Brady. I want nothing to do with Herbert anymore, Mike Clay. Fucking knocked me out of all my leagues in week freaking 13. And I went all in on him on DraftKings just to like be like, okay, you owe it to me, right, Herbert? You're gonna make up for it here against Atlanta. Nope. So I go Brady. Screw Herbert. Done with that douche. I'll get that testimonial to you this week as well. Thank you, RSJ. Yes. Thank you, Mitch. We greatly appreciate it. And if you want to do any writing, I know we talked. Text me. I got the all the news that we need to break down heading into week 15 here. But yes, Mitch, that would be so appreciated. And anybody else out there, as you see on the bottom line there, rotorstreetjournal.com/support2020 would be so greatly appreciated if you can give us your kind words and consider giving us a tip at the bottom if you think we've earned it. Maybe once you've won your big money, you can come on back over and give us a little thank you. Aaron Jones got me a little worried down the stretch with his poor performance at Detroit. Yeah, I get it, but this is what he does. He's been a pretty big touchdown, not dependent guy, but the touchdowns were the life of his fantasy value for so long. And when he doesn't get them, it hurts. The good news is he's facing a team where he should rack up at least one. Should he have last week against Detroit? Of course he should have. Sucks. I'm not benching Aaron Jones though. I mean, he's a beast in a good matchup. You don't get better. You don't get cute. I got cute with Aaron Jones last year, week 15 or 16. I benched him for Mike Boone because I was nervous about Aaron Jones. He went and put up like 35. Aaron Jones did against Minnesota. Mike Boone had like 2. Don't get cute. Don't get cute. Unless you got a really good option like Kamara, like we had from Ilias. Don't get cute. And a flex. I don't know what that means. Herbert versus Las Vegas or Tannehill versus Detroit for tunes. Let's go Tannehill. I'm done with Herbert. Done. Derrick Henry went off on my bye week. That's how it always goes in Septivis. I hope it's not the case for you, but how many times do we see it where your team just goes bananas on bye weeks and then ultimately they just lay a dud? Now, I hope that's not the case. And Derrick Henry's not going to lay a dud. He's facing Detroit this week. He needs 150 yards average the next 2 weeks to hit 2,000 yards. You know the team's going to get him there. So I'm not worried about Derrick Henry. I just hope the rest of your team shows up too. My man Hudbat, what's going on? Do you know much about Ronald Jones? So he's got the pinky, but they're saying it shouldn't be an issue as of right now. I don't think it's going to be anything too issue. It might be a bigger issue if he's a big pass catcher. That's not his game. And Gibson and Gaskin are going to be out. So yeah, you're going to have to keep riding him, and I think you should. Semifinal lineup, Tampa, Tom, Aaron Jones, Eckler, Montgomery, A-Rob, Evans, Jefferson, Woods. I can see why you're in the semis, man. That's a quality squad, Mr. Fella. You lined up against Furster? Our man Shady Ass, where's he at? Let me know how that goes. Keep us going. Yes, Cody. Was there anything better than seeing JT finally get the damn rock? If nothing else, it just validates what we've been saying all year. This guy is so fucking good. Why are you not feeding him? 30-something points. It's crazy. Why did this take so long? Thankfully, it's better late than never, especially for the owners that made it here. Because hopefully you were smart enough. It's Vegas. You had him in your lineup. Like he was our RB 8 or 9 on the week. You had to have him in. Now he gets Houston. Even easier matchup than the Raiders. The most rushing yards allowed on the league. You tell me he gets 25 carries against Houston. He might go for 202. All about it. All about it. JT, so pumped about it. C. Killian, 2K. Pick 3 for next week. Taylor, Locke. James. Oh, man. We're benching one of these guys. James Robinson, Taylor, Montgomery, or Sanders. Off the top of my head, I don't know who Robinson has. I'm not benching Taylor, and I'm not benching Miles Sanders after last week. And a pretty good matchup coming up, too. He did that against the hardest run D, 30-something points. Can't touch your bench now. So I'm going Taylor. I'm going Miles Sanders. It comes down to Robinson versus Montgomery. I don't know Robinson's matchup off the top of my head, Killian. Remind me who it is. But as of right now, I'd probably bench Montgomery. Bigger track record with Robinson, despite that hot streak of David. The Vikings aren't that great of a matchup for David. McLaurin or Montgomery, PPR. You got to just keep riding Montgomery in that case. McLaurin's done jack shit, fella. Yeah, he gets the Seahawks most points allowed. Okay. I'll believe he can get it done. I mean, if Haskins, let's see what Smith's injury is. We should have put him on the injuries. You're right. I forgot about that. Smith did have a leg injury. Haskin is McLaurin's boy. If we get Haskin against Seattle, the full game, I might go back in on McLaurin here. We got to wait and see that one out, fella. We got to wait and see that one out. If it's Smith at quarterback, I'm going Montgomery. Do you think they will sit CMC for the rest of the year since they have no chance? We talked about that earlier. I don't think so. They said they're planning to play him. It wouldn't be shocker. It'd probably be the smart play. I would do that if I'm the franchise. And maybe ownership steps in and says, we got to do this. Let's get him ready for next year. But knowing him, he's going to want to play. And rules said they're going to want to put him out there. So I would say I'd lean on him playing again more so than him not. But I wouldn't be shocked either way. Hopefully in the final, you'll see Firster. I got you. You both had the bye this last week. I need a running back too. Who do I start? McKissick, Washington, or Bowden? Now, is Bowden listed as a running back? I like McKissick here, though, with Gibson probably out. Bowden's a running back, though. That'd be kind of interesting, for sure. Really need to win this week, and I would go lay the guy who dropped Akers, and he's on my team now. That's how it goes. He's going to line you up. He's got you in the crosshairs now. You dropped Akers. He's going to light you up. He knocked me out after I dropped him. I'm sorry, Cody. No, I hope he doesn't go crazy, but yeah, he's going to have a good week against the Jets. I mean, there's nothing. He's a top 12 running back this week. It sucks. I hope you win, Cody. What's the situation again that'll win you and get you in? Like, who do you have to avoid tonight? One sec. Let me get my chargers here. Plug that in. It's about to die. Don't want that. Let me know your situation. But yeah, I hope you win and make it. I think Akers is going to slap you around a little bit. Give you a little, why'd you drop me type of backhand. I pray to the God football team starts Haskins. Tired of Smith checks down. Yeah, seriously. At this point, like, why not evaluate your young guy? See if he has anything left. I don't understand why they benched him in the first place, to be honest. Robinson plays Ravens. Montgomery gets Vikings. Okay. I might go Montgomery. Then the Ravens is a mediocre run D, but like they're in middle of the pack. They're going to be neck and neck. I'll tell you this much. I haven't ranked my week 15 guys yet, Killian. They're going to be neck and neck. I'm going to go Montgomery here. Bones and RB in Yahoo leagues. Did not know that incept of this. Good note for anybody out there. If you're desperate at running back, I think Bowden was a top receiver pickup, but the fact that you could use him at running back too, if you're desperate at running back, that's a nice little sneak in. Interesting. I do prefer McKissick still for your question, but that's worth noting. I wish I had talked about that earlier. Thank you, Inceptibus. I appreciate it. Also, Adam Thielen versus Bears or McLaurin. Again, we got to see who the quarterback is for McLaurin. If it's Haskins, I might roll him. Thielen it's such a risk with those Vikings. Like, they could blow up for 150 and 2, and they could get 30 yards like this week. It sucks. Ugh. I go Thielen, though. 28 or less from Hollywood. Yeah, I think you're in good shape. The 40-point, you're right, the 40-point touchdown. I remember that. If he's ever going to do it, it's going to league that's set up like yours. But I think you're in good shape here. Fingers crossed for you, brother. No Akersum. Oh, and the guy would play. Oh, so you're on the opposite end of that. So you're going to slap him around a little bit. Nice. Nice, Cody. Let's hope you make it there to punish him. Good. All righty. I'm glad to hear that one. I shared my secret of the Wolfpack with Shady Ass, and now we meet in the finals. I appreciate you sharing that. A lot of people out there, and I don't blame you necessarily. I hate the fact that this is the nature of fantasy, but people who find us don't like to share us because they ultimately were like their secret weapon, right? And this is what can happen is you end up meeting your opponents in the finals if you share us. I love when you guys are willing to share us with anybody you're not going to face in fantasy. It means the world. It helps us get to more people, and that's the goal. And if you're bold enough, like Anthony, to share us out with some other fans, then even the guys you're facing, then we appreciate you that much more. Fellow, you're a beast. Thank you. We greatly appreciate that. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Ilias, sorry for not being clear. I needed a running back 2 and flex out of Jones, Kamara, Montgomery. Okay, so we're playing 2 of them. So Montgomery's going to be my bench here as of right now. If Drew Brees is starting, Kamara's the lock, and then Aaron Jones will be the flex. If it's Taysom Hill, I think we might jam Montgomery back in. We'll have to track this one, Ilias, and see which quarterback we have. If it's Brees, Kamara's the number 2 or 3 running back of all of them. Of not these guys, of everybody. But if not, then it's probably Aaron Jones and Montgomery because of Taysom Hill's reluctance to check down. Alrighty, Wolfpack. Looks like we're getting right up to kickoff here. I greatly, greatly appreciate you guys so much for coming in here. Hopefully you get Jalen Hurts or any of these other waiver wire picks. Hopefully you don't really need them at this point of your playoffs. But if you lost somebody, you need a fill-in. Hope that information helps you out. I'll be live tomorrow, 5:30, Week 15 rankings. Let's get you all in there for your semifinals, baby. Cody, let's get less than 28 from Marquise. And Wolfpack, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you caught the replay too, I really, really appreciate that. And of course, if we have helped you out at all and you don't mind, 1, liking this, 2, subscribing and putting on some notifications if you want to consider that, to just know when we're live and answering your questions. And 3, if you go to rototreatjournal.com/support2020 and you're willing to toss in a testimonial for us and maybe even give us a tip if we've earned it, it would be so greatly appreciated to help us get RSJ to the next level. Wolfpack, thank you so much. I, of course, am the Wolf of Roto Street at Roto Street Wolf on Twitter. All our content's at rototreatjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves. We also have that on an iOS app in its cleanest form if you want to check that out. Thank you guys so much, and best of luck in what you need tonight, and best of luck in your championship semis as they come up. See you guys later.